So we're almost 8 billion people in the world. And a question that I would ask is, do you know how many people in the world suffer from at least one chronic condition?
So do you think AI can genuinely catch a health risk before even a human doctor does?
I don't believe in blind use of AI for CT scans, for MRIs, for X-rays. It's much faster at diagnosing and giving a report. And the same thing goes for the brain. We never really studied a female brain compared to a male brain. We always spend time looking at a male brain. In a way, what I see as the huge potential opportunity is in regard to the brain, because I think that's where all disease starts.
We live in a world where your smartwatch tells you your heart rate, your sleep cycles, and even your stress levels. So, what's changing here? Today on Impact Makers, we are getting into where AI meets human biology and how this is going to transform the way care is delivered. Our guest today built a company to fix exactly that. Reenita Das is the founder and CEO of NXT Horizon, a next-generation expertise-driven go-to-market AI company operating in the UAE with offices in 7 countries across the world. Today's conversation is about data, longevity, and preventive health. Hello, Ms. Reenita. We're so glad to have you here.
It's a wonder and a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So let's start at the very beginning. You've built NXT Horizon around health, AI, and predictive wellness. But what was that moment or the frustration that made you say, someone needs to fix this and it's going to be me?
I wish it was as easy as that. I've been in 30 years working in advisory and consulting across 10 countries in the world. And in every engagement that I worked with, whether it's with a hospital or a pharmacy or a provider or a manufacturer or distributor, I always felt that we were coming into the system too late. Healthcare is about sick care, and we enter when already the patient is sick.
Right.
And that was where the genesis of my idea started, that how do we make this transition from a sick care model to a healthcare model, and how do we make it much more outcome focused. I believe that healthcare is the only business in the world when we have a procedure or we take a drug, we don't know what is the outcome we're going to get out of it.
Right.
In everything else that we're buying today, we know what it's going to do for us. If you buy a perfume, we know it's going to smell nice, so we can try it. But in healthcare, there's no trials. We're having trials on our life and death. And I think that is something that we have now seen that digital technologies can help us to solve. And I want to be able to use those technologies and give us the outcomes so that we have better, healthier people of the 8 billion of us living in this world that we can meet them where they're at. So really that was the genesis of starting NXT Horizon. I'm really excited to be here at founding a company and helping it grow in the direction that I want it to be and doing things right. I'm always see myself as a patient advocate, a health equity change maker, and someone who basically looks at all the friction points in the healthcare environment and closes the gaps of those friction points. So really that's where I come in.
The one thing that you mentioned here was quite interesting, because to what we have currently is like a sick care model and not the healthcare. So how broken is the current model that we see here, and what should a truly preventive system should look like according to you?
Perfect. Great question. So we're almost 8 billion people in the world. And a question that I would ask is, do you know how many people in the world suffer from at least one chronic condition today? It's 5 billion.
Is it?
Yes, 5 billion people in the world today is suffering from at least one chronic condition, whether it's hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol, autoimmune disease, respiratory disorders, migraine. These are all chronic conditions.
Right.
And if we had to focus on chronic diseases, our healthcare system or our sick care system is not catered for that. Unfortunately, the sick care system comes in with episodic care. For example, when you get a symptom that you don't feel well, or you have a headache or a stomach ache or whatever it might be, then you go and see a doctor.
Yeah.
But what is the actual cause of that? We never actually find that out, because what we're doing is we're just taking drugs or injections or having a procedure that's actually subduing that problem.
Right.
It's-
so the deep root cause of it. you mean.
Yes, yes. And those are the hard questions I'm asking. How do we change the environment for food? What is the food that we're having? How can we look at as food as medicine? How do we change the environment for health in terms of activity and sports and exercise and physical education? How do we incorporate that into our lives? How do we connect the mind, body, and soul together? Healthcare has been focused so long, for 200-300 years, just on the body. We know every single body part by detail. We have specialists for every body part in the world today.
Yes,
But
that's
yet,
very
who is the specialist who's bringing all the body parts together? We don't have any.
Right.
And what I'm trying to do is look at it in a different way in terms of a human being approach. As humans, how do we connect our body with our mind and our soul? And that's really the direction that we're going. It's a pretty large thinking and a large idea, but there are so many opportunities in terms of working in this space today.
That's very true, because when we look at the larger picture in this, there are many small to bigger dots to connect to bring that larger picture in place and in the system
Right.
altogether.
Very true, very true.
So do you think wearables like Whoop here and other monitoring apps that we have got in today's world, will that really make a difference for us to choose that healthy life?
Absolutely. I'll just take a step back to see how the consumer revolution is taking place, because I think today the way we show ourselves in healthcare is really as a consumer, as a person. We're not showing ourselves as a patient, although we are categorized as a patient in the healthcare environment.
Right.
So we are coming in as a consumer. Today, almost 60% of the world is wearing some kind of a connected device, a smartphone, a watch, an app that they're tracking some health indicator.
Right.
We have wearables for almost every single body part. Last week, I was working with a company out of California that has a wearable regarding cortisol, that's stress. So you can measure your free cortisol automatically, continuously, and understand what is happening. Can
That
you
is
imagine how disruptive that would be if that product is available to all of us to be able to manage our stress levels and have certain things that we can do? In my view, blood pressure and some of these other indicators would be gone
Right.
in the future. There's another company out of South Korea that's invented a cuffless blood pressure monitor ring on your finger that you can wear that gives you 24-hour readings of blood pressure. So I think what we're seeing is that wearables are creating a lot of data. It's a lot of noise we're creating.
Yeah.
But we're not able to, as a healthcare system, as a clinician, be able to figure out which of that data is noise or which is actually a signal or an alert. And I think this is where AI and technology will help us to build a personalized predictive system, which will be based on my persona, my genetics, my lifestyle issues, the way I live my life, how much I sleep. It'll be based on me. And that is what AI is trying to do.
That's very interesting, because to what we see in terms of the new technology that's coming out, and to kind of predict the difference and see the difference between the noise and what's really signaling your health, and that's probably a good thing or a bad thing, that will make a huge difference in the society.
Absolutely. For example, we have products now that are tracking hormones for women. So if you know what your estrogen level is and if it's declining over time, you would have a tremendous idea of what to do with it in terms of your cardiovascular health, in terms of osteoporosis, in terms of all the other diseases you could potentially have because of a lack of estrogen, where the body is not supplying enough as you age. So those are really, really powerful indicators. For example, I was at a cardiovascular conference this Sunday, and we talked about a wearable that can detect atrial fibrillation 3 months before the symptoms actually appear in a person.
Right.
So what we are going to actually see is a reverse in the healthcare system. We're going to see a reverse where the signal, the algorithm, or the alert is going to be the first point of health for the consumer.
Right.
And the clinician, the first clinical moment will become the second. So clinicians now need to be able to spend their time actually looking at all of these alerts, looking at all of this data, and then making hypothesis and validation of it. And so their role will also change. So I do believe clinicians will become like system architects that will be involved in designing that system, leading that system, governing that system, and then also taking decisions of when to use the data and when not to use the data. So I think their life will become much easier. So I believe in my motto, technology should make us more human, not the other way around.
So in your response here, the agentic AI, it's not just responding, it's also acting on behalf of the clinicians here.
Not really acting, it will provide data which will be cumulative, long-term, using some kind of analysis to say, these are the 3 possibilities of a risk assessment for this particular patient, for example. So agents can do much more than just say this is the data. Agents can also do simple routine tasks if we tell them what we need to do. For example, if we want to be able to manage population health, for example, the population of all our patients that we are treating as a doctor, it will be able to find commonalities between it. It depends on how much of algorithm we set into the system to tell it what to do. And that's what an agent is. And I believe all of us in the next 5 to 10 years will have an agent for everything. For example, I'm a researcher at heart. I've already started building a research agent for myself. So it learns what I'm looking for. It can teach me new things that are happening. I tell them what areas I'm interested in, and it brings me that information. So that is really disruptive because a lot of companies will get out of business that is providing that once we have more agents doing this job.
Interesting. So do you think AI can genuinely catch a health risk before even a human doctor does?
Yes, I do believe it does. It just is, we just have to be careful in being able to use that data effectively and validate that data. So I don't believe in blind use of AI. I believe in use of AI with trust and judgment. And that's the job of the clinician to be able to do. And we've already seen the successes of AI. For example, we saw the successes of AI for radiology, for CT scans, for MRIs, for X-rays. It's much faster at diagnosing and giving a report at almost 10 minutes more than what the speed of a radiologist would be. The second area we've seen in ECG readings, for example, and ECG reading sometimes takes 45 minutes for a cardiologist to review and go through, whereas an AI ECG agent will do it in less than 4 minutes.
Wow, that's interesting. And it actually saves a lot of time for the doctors as well, and to have more time with the patients.
Exactly. So what we're saying is that one has to reduce the time, the screen time, and increase the face-to-face time. And that's what doctors came to medical school to do, right? To treat patients, to understand them, to spend face time and eye contact with them, not to sit behind a screen and hear a person talking and just type in forms, which is what is happening today.
That's true. Now, let's talk about something that I think a lot of people that don't pay attention to is women's health. This segment has been chronically under-researched, underfunded, and often ignored by the healthcare system. Why has that happened, and does that matter economically, not just clinically?
Yeah, so unfortunately, women's health is a very highly charged political, economic, social impact question. I think it's because we were always living in a male patriarchal society that was built by men for men, and our health just fitted in to that society. I mean, we all know that we were not involved in clinical trials because of maternity and pregnancy issues till 1998 or so. Even today, if you look at cardiovascular health, we're less than 23% in clinical trials. And yet more women are having cardiovascular issues than men. So we're having drugs that were actually designed for men. And the same thing goes for the brain. We never really studied a female brain compared to a male brain. We always spend time looking at a male brain. And even the people who are running the trials are men. There are very few women who are running the trials. So now this has become a very huge political mandate, and it started during the time of of the US administration of Biden, where a lot of money and funds were going into increasing women's research. Because we are 4 billion of us in the world today, and yet we've always been categorized as much less. And as a result of the way the system is, we are underdiagnosed every time, 1 into 8. We hardly get any funding, 3 or 4% of funding that goes to us. We have many more different types of diseases that is caused by our hormones compared to men, and we don't have data to study that. So we need more data. And for AI to work effectively, again, we can't take data from men's data and use AI to make risk assessments on women. We need more women's data, and we need more women's voices in that, and more women's research. So there is a lot of efforts made between nonprofit organizations, the Melinda Gates Foundations, the Jill Biden Foundation, and a lot of overall groups that are now working towards this. But eventually the money is controlled still by men. So we're seeing a huge amount of venture capital, women's groups now being set up. There are more than 10 or 20 of these groups across the world that are investing in women's technology. So I'm very opportunistic of where we could go with women's health. But right now, if we say it's a $3 trillion opportunity, yes, it is. But how much are we actually getting in terms of money out of that?
That's very true. On the topic of women, we see that a massive number of them will be in menopause or a perimenopause this year. But still, hormonal health is hardly a topic of conversation, like you just mentioned. In FemTech, what's the next or the current opportunity that you see that people have still not tapped into?
Yeah, no, those are really good questions. First of all, I want to just clarify that I don't use the word femtech anymore simply because I think it's very restrictive. I think it was a great thing that we came up with that word to label it, to get visibility and branding around women's health. But I think now the time has gone to call it women's health again, back again, now that we have that visibility and people know what femtech is. In a way, what I see as the huge potential opportunity is in regard to the brain, because I think that's where all disease starts. And we need to start studying the women's brain because we have much more sufferers as women for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. It's 1:4 and 1:6 compared to men. Yeah. So, and women live longer. They live 20% longer than men. And while they're living longer, they're suffering from all these diseases, and we haven't really studied what is the cause of these diseases and how these diseases are progressing in their lives. So it's really important for us to put in a lot of work into the brain health of women so that we can understand that. And I think brain health and hormones is just now that we've started making the connection. That how lack of estrogen, how PCOS and all of these other early problems that women have to conceive, for infertility, is all leading to brain disorders. We don't know that yet, but there could be hypotheses around it. So similarly, if you have gestational diabetes, we know that there's a direct link to having gestational diabetes and having diabetes later in your 50s. We have that evidence. So how do we prevent that from happening? How do we empower women to take better control of themselves and their health, because we take care of everyone else except ourselves?
That's true. Because when it comes to women, we've always taken all the responsibility, even when it comes to as a household and now as career that we see as well. So for us, when health gives us a signal, we kind of take a drug and then subside it and everything. But then when someone really wants to get into that deep root cause of it, to have a not only long life but a healthy long life, so that's where it will make a huge difference.
Right. And so I think brain health is one big area. I think the other big area of growth is autoimmune diseases, because I think autoimmune diseases is again higher in women than in men. Migraine is also another area. I think all of these diseases are also related to anxiety, to depression, to mood swings that happen with our menstrual cycles throughout our life. And we haven't got any data to look at that. So I think it's an exciting area to be in. I think women's health, for me, is one of the most exciting spaces because there is so much that we can do, but yet we have to convince venture capital, private equity, and the people who are funding it to be able to actually see the light.
Right.
for doing that.
Now, I'm sure you must be aware that just a few days ago, Dubai Longevity Authority was launched. Being a scientist in the field and an expert, what is one small change you can make to increase your health span here?
First of all, I have to give full credit to Dubai to take the leadership to set up this longevity authority, because I think it's one of the most important things that this country has done for healthcare, in my view.
Right.
If I look at longevity across the world, 90% of all the longevity wellness, so-called spa centers, are selling a whole host of high-end expensive products which have no clinical validity in them. And I say this straight out because there is no governance around it. There is no sense of regulation around it. And even in Dubai last year, when I was doing the research, I found that there are almost 900 operators who are selling stem cells, selling different IV drips and supplements almost out of their homes without any licenses.
Yeah.
So the police really went down on that, and I think that's been remarkable. So I think this is one way to be able to say this is pure science and this is not science. And I think we need to also educate consumers on that, because we're spending a lot of money because we are so anxious for a cure. We're so anxious to feel better. We're so anxious to feel good that we really don't think about it from the point of view, is this really going to make me feel good? We're believing it. And I think we have to, this longevity authority will create that rigor that we need, which is science-based, and all the products that are used are actually approved and FDA licensed, and it's not going to be stuff that is done in some back-end greenhouse that we're creating.
I think to what you mentioned here regarding to the IV drips, I think a few months ago there was a huge boom in India regarding the IV drips, of many of the youngsters taking that in without any proper research backed IV drips on what's really your body needs and whether it's really important for you, the youngsters, to actually take that IV drip or let the body repair in itself and have that immune system ready for your body.
Very true. And I think that's why I think diagnostics and screening your genetics is so important, because once you have the diagnostics done, you have you have your genetics screened, you know what your dispositions are, you know what you're more suited to and what you're not suited. You can also understand what propensity of disease you'll get, what are those diseases, and then you can address that. But I think we're all in an immediate consumer gratification mode all the time because of the way we live. So we immediately want to take an NAD drip to make us feel better, or we have a difficult day and let's take some NMN to make us feel good.
Yeah, it's more to have a little bit of patience with your own body, to give time to repair and to feel good, because a drug will do its effect immediately in the body.
And then it's gone.
Yeah, then it's gone. After a few hours, you can see the ripple effect coming back. So
Right. Very true. Very true. But it's an exciting space. I think there's so much of work that needs to be done in longevity, the whole area of the science of aging, geroscience. I've just started studying this area. I'm very new to it myself. I think there's so much to be able to learn about, what is the science of aging and how do we create less aging so that we have a healthier life, not a longer life with more sickness. And I think that's really the goal of all of this.
Yeah. Well, Reenita, thank you so much for your time. This conversation has been genuinely one of those conversations that makes you want to go home and rethink to how you're living.
Thank you so much, Ritu. It's been a pleasure.
And to everyone watching, if this got you thinking, like, subscribe and share. Send it to someone you know who needs to hear this. Until then, keep watching MoneyPetrol and we'll see you in the next episode.
RG Group. We value your investments.